Hello and welcome. I thought I'd make another video today, and this is in response to a comment left by Marco, where he was saying, if we understood his comment, that there's this real social and cultural pressure to drink alcohol in many countries. It's seen as the normal thing to do, and it's the normal way to be sociable, and it's like we kind of have to fit in with that, even though it's obvious alcohol isn't necessarily doing us any favors. And this reminds me of a quote by Michel Foucault, the philosopher, who once said, "A society that demands we be normal, even as it drives us insane." That there's this real pressure on society to fit in and be sociable and drink, and it can be very hard to step away from that. We can feel really abnormal to step away from that, and there's this real pressure to fit in, and it's such a common thing, such a common problem to have. I mean, I think most people who say develop a problem with alcohol can recognize that it's not doing them any favors, but when they stop, even for years afterwards, there can still be this sense that they're somehow abnormal, that they're somehow, not doing the done thing. That, it's like, even if you look at the media in the West, in countries like Ireland or the UK, it's like every TV show is promoting alcohol abuse. Here in Thailand, I don't see too much of them, but when I do, I mean, there's people always drinking. Even the soap operas, it seems to be people drinking. Basically, I'm sure if we kind of tallied how much they were drinking at an unhealthy level, and that's being portrayed as normal. That's what we're being fed all the time. There's so much out there that promotes, excessive drinking, and there's so many people that believe that's the whole point of life, that you do your work and then you have a few points, and it can be very difficult to step outside of that without feeling abnormal. But the thing about it is, I mean, abnormal is actually good, because I think we'd all be horrified if we really kind of figured out how many people are having to self-medicate, whether it's, alcohol or other drugs or prescribed drugs, just to be able to cope with normal life. And maybe the problem is normal life, and maybe the only, for many of us, the only option we have in regards to our own sanity is to be able to step outside of that. And this recognition, I don't think it's us that's wrong. It's the society that's wrong. And I'm not really interested in changing the world, to be honest with you. I've got I'm not trying to, get people to not drink. I don't care about any of that. But what's obvious to me is I'm into personal change, changing ourselves. And it's very obvious to me that normal doesn't work for many of us. I was involved with the recovery community for a long time, and they have this saying, a bridge to normal living. I mean, sod that, I've got no interest in normal living, because to me, normal living, as far as I can see, for most people, is kind of unsatisfying. And really, the reason we can kind of step aside and be able to kind of ignore, I wouldn't say ignore, start to become immune to that social pressure or cultural pressure, is this recognition that there's something much more available. There is something that we can have that's far superior to all of that. And the question is, and it's like a lot of things, I mean, if there's something important to us, if there's something that we value, it often involves, not doing what our friends are doing. So say you had a real passion for a business idea, and in order to make that happen, you may have to make choices and not just go along with what everyone else is doing. And it's kind of like that, only much bigger. That when you start to realize, that I'm serious about wanting, peace, of wanting more well-being in my life, that I can't just go along with what everyone else is doing. And to kind of start to recognize that, we've all been conditioned to see things in a specific way. And the conditioning about alcohol is very, very pervasive and very kind of disturbing, really, when you think about it. I mean, alcohol, it has got far more serious consequences for society than heroin or cocaine. I mean, it causes far more suffering. I mean, don't just take my word for it. I mean, look it up. I mean, it does far more damage to people than any other drug, than all the other drugs combined, actually. And yet, it's so heavily promoted everywhere. And imagine if that was heroin. Imagine if these TV shows and everything was promoting heroin. Someone left a comment today, So AG, where he was saying, they have things like the Heineken cup. Imagine if they had the heroin cup or the cocaine cup. I mean, that might sound absurd, but I mean, what's the difference? I mean, it's just because society has made a particular drug seem socially acceptable. It's just conditioning. And there comes a kind of point for, if we're serious about peace and about, finding something, we kind of go, well, like, do I really, what's more important to me? Is it the social conditioning, or is it this peace? Because it doesn't seem to me that for at least a lot of us, that we can't have both. That we have to learn to not be controlled by this kind of manipulation that's coming from society to promote a certain thing. And it takes courage to step outside of that and say, no, I don't want that anymore. I don't believe that alcohol is capable of offering what I'm actually after. And to kind of to really kind of have a sense for that. And that kind of gives us the courage. And there's great strength in not being manipulated anymore, and kind of recognizing, personally, I'm not going to allow that stuff to control me anymore, because I've got bigger fish to fry. So I hope that was useful, and thanks very much for that question, Marco. That's why I put out this video today. Just I wanted to respond to it quickly. If any of you guys have any other questions, please fire away. I'll be glad to answer them. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again.